But I thought Miss Monny, as you called her, adopted only her own ideas. How can a mere half aunt, labouring under the name of Cleopatra, force her—" "Well, you see, white's very becoming, and as for the Cleopatra part, it pleases our princess to tolerate that. It's part of the queer history that's mixing me up with the family. We've come to spend the season in Egypt because Cleopatra thinks she's Cleopatra, also because Monny, that's what she's chosen to call herself since she tried to lisp Rosamond and couldn't, because Monny has read The Garden of Allah and wants the desert to take her. That book had nothing to do with Egyptian deserts, but any desert will do for Monny. What she expects it to do with her exactly when it has taken her, on the strength of a Cook ticket, I don't quite know, but I may later, because she vows she'll keep me at her side with hooks of steel all through the tour, unless something worse happens to me, or to some of us because of me. Biddy dear, don't be morbid. Nothing bad will happen," I tried to reassure her. "Thank you for saying so. It cheers me up. We women folk are so in the habit of believing anything you men folk tell us. It's really quaint." "Stop rotting and tell me about yourself, and a truce to heiresses and Cleopatras. You know I'm dying to hear." "Not a syllable until you've told me about yourself. Where you're going, and what the dickens for?" We laughed into each other's eyes. To do so I had to look a long way down, and she a long way up. This in itself is a pleasantly Victorian thing for a man to do in these days of jerry-built girls, on the same level or a story or two higher than himself. I'm not a tall man, just the dull average 5 foot 10 or 11 that appears taller while it keeps lean, so naturally I have a hopeless yearning for nymph-like creatures who pretend to be engaged when I ask them to dance. Still, there's consolation and homely comfort in talking with a little woman who makes you feel the next best thing to a giant. Biddy is an old-fashioned 5'4" in her highest heels, and as she smiled up at me I saw that she hadn't changed a jot in the last 10 years, despite the tragedy that had involved her. Not a silver thread in the black hair, not a line on the creamy round face. "You're just yourself," I said. "I oughtn't to be, I know that very well. I ought to be a Dido and a Niobe and a Cassandra rolled into one. I'm a brute not to be dead or look a hag. I've gone through horrors, and the secrets I know could put dozens of people in prison, if not electrocute them. But you see I'm not the right type of person for the kind of life I've had, as I should be if I were in a story book, and the author had created me to suit my background. I can't help flapping up out of my own ashes before they're cold. I can't help laughing in the face of fate. And looking a girl of 23, at most, while you do it. If I look a girl, I must be a phenomenon as well as a phoenix, for nobody knows better than you that my Bible age is 31 if it's a day. And I think Burke and Debrett have got the same tale to tell about you, eh?" "They have. I was always delighted to share something with you." "You can have the whole share of my age over 26. There's one advantage Mrs. Jones has. She can, if her looking glass doesn't forbid, go back to that classic age dear to all sensible adventuresses. I'm afraid I come under the head of adventuress, with my alias, and travelling as companion to the rich Miss Gilder. You're the last person on earth for the part. Your fate was thrust on you. You've thrust yourself on no one. Miss Gilder achieved you. Collected me, rather, as one of her specimens. She has a noble weakness for lame ducks, and though she fails sometimes in trying to strengthen their game legs, she tries gloriously. She and her aunt have been travelling in France and Italy, guided by instinct and French maids, and already Monny has picked up 2 weird protégés, sure to bring her grief. The most exciting and deadly specimen is a perfectly beautiful American girl just married to a Turkish bey who met her in Paris, and is taking her home to Egypt. I haven't even seen the unfortunate houri, because the Turk has shut her up in their cabin and pretends she's seasick. Monny doesn't believe in the seasickness, and sends secret notes in presents of flowers and boxes of chocolates. But I have seen the Turk. He's pink and white and looks angelic, except for a gleam deep down in his eyes, if Monny inquires after his wife when any of her best young men are hanging about. Especially when there's Neil Sheridan, a young Egyptologist from Harvard, Monny met in Paris, or Willis Bailey, a fascinating sculptor who wants to study the crystal eyes of wooden statues in the museum at Cairo. He is going to make them the fashion in America next year. Yes, Madame Rechid Bey is a most explosive protégée for a girl to have on her way to Egypt. I'm not even sure I am not innocuous by comparison, though I do wish you hadn't reminded me of my poor little stepdaughter Esmé, in her convent school. If any one should get the idea that Monny—but I won't put it in words. Besides me, and the brand new bride of Rashid Bey, Wretched Bey is our name for him, there's one more protégée, a Miss Rachel Guest from Salem, Massachusetts, a school teacher taking her first holiday. That sounds harmless, and it looks harmless to an amateur, but wait till you meet her and see what instinct tells you about her eyes. Oh, we shall have ructions! But that reminds me, you haven't told me where you're bound, or anything. Thanks for putting me among the specimens, but this sample hasn't been yet collected by Miss Gilder. You might be her salvation and keep her out of mischiefs. She's quite wild now with sheer joy because she's going to Egypt. But do be serious, and tell me all I pine to know, if you want me to do the same by you. Well, though it's unimportant compared to what you have to tell, I'm an insignificant second secretary to Sir Raymond Ronalds, the British ambassador at Rome. I've got 4 months' leave. Ah, that's what comes of duffing so skilfully and avoiding all the things you didn't want to do, till you got exactly what you did want. I remember when we were a small boy and girl, and you used to walk down to the vicarage every day, to talk Greek or Latin or something with father. No, to see you. Well, you used to tell me, if you couldn't be the greatest prize fighter or the greatest opera singer in the world, you thought you'd like to be a diplomat. I haven't become a diplomat yet, in spite of Foreign Office grubbing, but I've been enjoying life pretty well, fagging up Arabic and modern Greek, and playing about with pleasant people, while pretending to do my duty. Now I've got leave on account of a mild fever which turned out to be a blessing in disguise. I could have found no other excuse for Egypt this winter. You speak as if you had some special reason for going to Egypt. I've been wishing to go, more or less, for years, because you know, if you haven't forgotten, I was accidentally born in Cairo while my father was fighting in Alexandria. My earliest recollections are of Egypt, for we lived there till I was 4, about the time I met and fell in love with you. I've always thought I'd like to polish up old memories. But my special hurry is because I'm anxious to meet a friend, a chap I admire and love beyond all others. I want to see him for his own sake, and for the sake of a plan we have, which may make a lot of difference for our future. How exciting! Did I ever know him? I think not. Well, don't you mean to tell me who he is? I hesitated, sorry I had let myself go, because Anthony had written that he didn't want his movements discussed at present. I'll tell you another time, I said. I want to talk about you. Anybody else is irrelevant. Clever duffer, your friend is a secret. Not he, but if there's a secret anywhere, it's only a dull, dusty sort of secret. You wouldn't be interested. Women never are, in secrets. Well, I'm glad somebody else besides myself has a mystery to hide. You're very quick. I'm Irish, but I'm merciful. No more questions till you're off your guard. You're free to ask me all you like, if there's anything you care to know which horrid newspapers haven't told you these last few years. There are 1,000 things. You didn't answer anybody's letters after Richard died. Oh, I can talk about it now. It was the best thing that could happen for him, poor fellow. Life in hiding was purgatory. No, I couldn't answer letters, though my old friends, you among them, wanted to be kind. There wasn't anything I could let anybody do for me. Monny Gilder's different. You'll see why. I smiled indulgently. But though I was to be introduced to Miss Gilder for the purpose of being eventually gilded by her, at the instant my thoughts were all for my childhood's sweetheart. Bridget Byrne made a terrible mess of things in marrying, when she was 18 or so, Richard O'Brien, in the height of his celebrity as a socialist leader. People still believed in him then, at the time of his famous lecturing tour and visit to his birthplace on our green island, and though he was more than twice her age, the fascination he had for Biddy surprised few who knew him. He was eloquent in a fiery way, he had extraordinary eyes, and it was his pride to resemble portraits of Lord Byron. After an acquaintance of a month, Biddy married O'Brien. I had just gone up to Oxford at the time, or I should have tried not to let it happen, went to America with him, and voluntarily ceased to exist for her friends. Poor girl, she must have had an awakening. He had posed as a bachelor, but after her marriage she found out, and the world with her, that he was a widower with one child, a little girl he had practically abandoned. Biddy adopted her, though